Good afternoon. So my gears have been turning pretty hard most of the day. Now, obviously, there's again not a Bible chapter. Don't worry, I haven't flaked out on that. I had a couple things that I've been doing, and then on top of that, I have been trying to figure out what is going on. Because something happened that I really did not see coming. Obviously, Trump has backed up a little bit on his approach with Russia and Syria. We'll see what the coming hours and days lead to. But I find it really interesting, everything that's going on. Kind of trying to piece it all together. Now, remember, from the beginning, when it comes to all of this, I do my best to keep my mind open. Because if the moment you close your mind and you say, okay, this is this way, that's all there is to it, guess what? You're going to miss something. And it could be big. It could be absolutely huge. And so that's why I'm constantly going over the same paths that I have before, double checking the information, double checking motivations, intent. And this is some confusing stuff. Now, if I were to give my opinion on what is going on, my opinion would be to this point that what has stopped missiles from being lobbed into Syria at this time is us. And I'm just being real honest with you. Not the Watchman news and our watchers. I'm talking about the awake American people. Because just like I was talking about, if we want to prevent this, we better speak up. That's the only way it was going to stop. And I do honestly believe, I wholeheartedly believe that we are the ones that stopped it. I have no doubt of that. Now, I have to venture one step further and try to figure out, we know the motivation. That's been clear for decades. Again, like I said, Iran is the target, but Syria comes before Iran. So we know the motivation, we know the target. Now, at this point, the trick is to find who's really behind it. And I think it's important to assess and keep reassessing Trump's role, not only with the Syrian incident, but in the United States presidency as a whole. And this is where it gets confusing. Because I see a lot of things that haven't been touched that really need to be touched, like yesterday. A lot of things that were involved with the NDAA 2012 need to be removed. The Patriot Act needs to be removed. All the NSA spy programs need to be removed. And none of this stuff is being touched at all. Not at all. Why? To anybody that has the United States at heart, the citizens of this country at heart, those would be priorities. Those would be absolute priorities. Because for every day, every second that goes by that something is not done, everything we do, everything that is our lives, is going into a permanent database in a fusion center. Everything. Whether it's a text message to a family member, a phone call to a friend, Facebook post, a Facebook like. Every single bit of it. I find this whole thing with Zuckerberg speaking in front of Congress, I find that's all a joke to begin with. I mean, come on. If you understand the base, the foundation of Facebook, you you all understand the joke of it all. This is a dog and pony show, as is much of politics. Of course the government knows about the data collection that the Facebook that does. The government's behind it. They're the ones who benefit the most from it. But they're going to sell it off to you like it's just research and advertising. That's a crock. Don't get me wrong. They do plenty of research on us, and they try to sell us plenty of goods, because that's our only real usefulness to them. Consumerism. That's why if you make steps in your life to end the consumerism within your own life, they take steps against you. That's what it's about. See, it's not about being productive, it's about being productive for them. But anyway, I'm kind of getting off my course here. I am reassessing this constantly reassessing this. Because this is a big deal. If we take this step into global warfare, we are not going to come out smelling like a rose at all. And war is not going to stay in foreign countries. It's not. That's a thing of the past. We might be able to go hit these small little countries and keep the war over there. But we're not going to be able to take on another superpower like China or Russia and expect to keep the war on their turf. It's not going to happen. They're not that foolish. They are not that foolish. I don't know how the hell in all the time this country has been a country, we haven't had war here on the homeland. And now, again, like I've said before, I'm not talking about the Revolutionary War that began this country or the Civil War. That was an internal matter. I'm talking about a world war. And no, Pearl Harbor doesn't count on the scope of what I'm talking about. Not saying that I'm dismissing Pearl Harbor. I'm just saying that it's not on the scope that I'm talking about. And then there's a lot of argument over what Pearl Harbor was really about, how it became, and all that good stuff too, just like 9/11. But we have to pay really close attention. You know, I don't know if we're getting rope-a-doped totally or just partially. I don't know if Trump's trying to be a good president. I don't know if there's people that are trying to misdirect, misguide, mislead Trump. And that's possible. It's very possible. But real quick, like overnight, we went from Mr. Tough Talk to Mr. Diplomacy. And the only thing I can think of that did that surely wasn't intelligence. I'll tell you right now, and I don't mean his personal intelligence. I mean intelligence from the people providing him intelligence. It's not from them. Because those individuals that are beating the war drums the loudest, they're the ones that are trying to get him to jump. And I'm glad that he hasn't. Because there's a lot of information that we need to get first, that we need to acquire before we make such moves. It's insane. I watched a video earlier. It was on Facebook, and I can't remember the name of the channel, White House Briefing, or I don't know, something like that. It was a black gentleman talking, and he seemed to be, in my opinion, he seemed to be conservative-minded, And I don't really know his show or anything like that, and I didn't really listen to a lot of it. But he was talking about how conservatives are all over the place with this attack in Syria. You know, some of them calling it a false flag, and others calling it, calling for war, calling for blood. And he was talking about it, and he even mentioned the people saying that, about it being a false flag. But even he himself doubled down about it being the real deal, showing pictures and whatnot from Syria. Now, Rage Wolf, he's on my Facebook. I seen him make a post earlier today about the effects of being hit with chlorine gas and essentially what it would do. And I don't know. I personally don't know. I've not been hit with chlorine gas, and I haven't really researched it. But he was talking about how literally you don't have a chance to live. There is no living. And he was more or less stating, and I hope I don't get what he was getting at wrong, but literally, from what it sounded like, it'd pretty much turn your lungs and heart into goo. And that you would see a mass of that, I guess, around the head or whatnot where you lay, which is not, that's not unreasonable. Now, the pictures that I seen on that particular video showed some like white frothing kind of stuff. It did look like some of those children were indeed dead. But where are those children at? I don't know. I can't tell you that they're in Syria. I can't tell you where they were. I can tell you this. Assad did not gas his own people. There is no benefit to that. There's no benefit to that at all. After the monologue, I'm going to play a video that I've been threatening to play. And we're going to play the video from the fake CNN chemical attack back from the 90s. We're going to play that video, but I'm going to do it after the monologue because I get hit every time I play that video. I get hit for copyright for it. So I'll wait until after the monologue to play it. However, if you are just listening to the monologue and don't catch the show after the monologue's over, just go to YouTube and put in CNN fake newscast best quality. CNN fake newscast best quality, and you will find the video. It is unmistakable, absolutely unmistakable. This is what you'll see. Again, the channel I have it on is Patriot Portal. But again, the title of the video is CNN fake newscast best quality. It will blow your mind, absolutely blow your mind. And yes, that is what they used to use blue instead of green for a green screen. They used to use blue, and that is Charles Jacobs standing in front of a quote-unquote green screen. And you believe me, you see the video, you'll get it real quick. Now, if I'm not mistaken, this is when the whole baby incubator stuff and all that kind of stuff was going on too, if I'm not mistaken. Folks, we got to get a hold of ourselves. We have to pull our heads out of our asses. There has been a weakening in this country, an intentional weakening, not only in the citizens here, but also in our military. And it was intentional. Our weapons are outdated, and I'm talking about more than just guns, okay? Our weapons are outdated. Our defense weapons are outdated. Our troop numbers are down. Our troop morale is through the floor. We are not in a situation to where we need to be begging for a world war. We're not. And I would say anybody that is all for this war, if somebody really wants this war, then send your own fucking kids to it. I'm sorry for the language. But it's disgusting to me when people out there that have nothing to lose want to act like it's not a big deal to go send people to death, or possibly an entire country or cities to death, because that's what we're looking at. That is exactly what we're looking at. Long time ago, I was in school. I wasn't even in high school yet, right? I've got, my oldest brother was a Marine. Hoorah, right? And we had a scare. The bombing of the barracks in Beirut. My brother was stationed there at the time. My family went for 2 weeks without knowing whether or not my brother was alive. That was one set of the roughest 2 weeks of my life. I've had a few of those sets. But that was one of the roughest times of my life. My oldest brother, he was my buddy. He was my buddy. And it was an indescribable fear. And I'm just a little kid. I'm just a little kid at the time. And I can remember then I came up with an idea, which I'm sure I'm not the first, but as a child, it was new to me, that if our governments disagree, we need to lock them up in a room and leave everybody else out of it, you know? Put Trump and Putin or Trump and Assad or whoever in a cage match together, right? Because what the hell are we fighting for? I mean, seriously. We go into all these countries. We cause all these issues. There were no weapons of mass destruction. That's why they never found weapons of mass destruction, because they didn't exist in the first place. They knew that. They knew that. Just like they knew Gaddafi wasn't doing the things the propaganda said he was doing. From the people that lived in that country, they say he was the best ruler of that country that they've had. He was actually building infrastructure. He was actually improving the country. He was improving people's lives. And we killed him. We killed him. We had so many oil deals with Hussein, it was unreal. Had so many deals with bin Laden, it was unreal. Time we wake up. Which I need to get to the important part of what I need to get at today in this monologue. And I'm going to read the Twitter stuff and give you finance updates and all that. The Prepared Mind every weekend puts out his weekly show, and the big question is, are we closer to shit hitting the fan? And so I've been asking myself that every day now when I do this monologue. I may not, vocally say it to you, but I ask it in my head. And in light of the last 24 hours and Trump backing off, I've once again asked myself, are we closer to shit hitting the fan or not? I don't think it makes a difference. Here's why. Here's why. If Trump is listening to us, if we are the ones that just prevented something that could be absolutely catastrophic. That doesn't stop the machine. That doesn't stop what people want to call the deep state or the elite or whatever you want to call them, the Illuminati, whatever name you want to put on them, the spaghetti bakers, I don't know. If that's true, that likely put us in a bit more danger. Why? Because we utilize the technology that we have at our fingertips, literally, to make a difference. Anytime that the powers that be realize that we find power in something or we find a way with something, they will change that. They will change that. Just like business. Just like business. Back when a little ways, some decades ago, you actually had a chance to start out working at a minimum wage job, to build up enough money to wind up building your own business and actually becoming a corporation and doing well for yourself. Chances of that today is about like the same chances of being a rock star. And largely, it was people in government that created an environment that made that nearly impossible for the average person. So they are going to try to silence us. And they are going to silence us. They need this, folks. They need this to continue on to their next step. They have to have this. And if we can get out like we did, because believe me, I've seen people from all walks of life, political ideologies, you name it. I've seen a ton of people speaking out about this nonsense in Syria. And thank you. Thank you. That was one thing that I've seen people agreeing on that I haven't seen people agree on in a long damn time. So the powers that be know we have a voice. And I hope the people to be realize that it was their voice. But now we need to be especially careful, because they will stop at nothing to take that voice away. They'll stop at nothing. So I would say, hadn't changed, and possibly the chances got a little bit worse. And it's not fear-mongering, it's logic. It's strategy. And it threw me for a loop. I figured by now there'd have been missiles hitting. Okay, let's take a quick trip. Well, let me show you what's up. Last night, if you haven't seen the solar project preview video, because I mentioned it on there, if you weren't here last night for the show, somebody, a wonderful person, donated and helped us to get a solar charge controller. And so I'm going to be doing a full-on video on solar and how to do it rather inexpensively and be able to get a relatively decent bang for your buck, so to speak. It's kind of one of those things to where you're not going to get everything for nothing, but you can put a little bit into it and get something that will do. So I'll before we get to that real quick, I will show you the solar charge controller that we went with. Let me get it in the right window here. That's the solar charge controller that we went with right there. We went with the 30 amp. So that was his recommendation, by the way. We were going to go with the 20 amp, but he said to go with the 30 amp. So that's what we did. It's a MPPT, and it looks to be relatively decent. No, it's not one of those Midnight Sun or whatever they're called, Midnight Classic or whatever. It's not one of those. It's not intended to be one of those, because this is not a huge system. I'm looking for something that is mobile. Okay, I'm not talking about something you'd strap to your bug out bag. I'm talking about something a little bigger than that. However, this is definitely, without a doubt, mobile, and can be somehow worked into your system. So I've already figured out ways to working it in with ours, even if we had to bug out. So that's not a concern. In fact, that's another part of that trailer, right? Because that trailer will help. And if we would have to bug out for whatever reason. See, I'm thinking about this a lot. If we have to bug out for some reason, that trailer that I'm intending on getting for Blue will not only be able to haul her, but it will also be able to haul equipment. And then Jen's bike, being a trike, has a basket on the back of it. Plus, she doesn't have to worry about, stability or anything like that. As long as she doesn't go at an angle downhill. That's the only time she's got to worry about stability, right? Do not turn while going downhill. No, you didn't get hurt. Trikes, anything with 3 wheels can be extremely dangerous. In the wrong condition. If you're at an angle going downhill, you're looking for trouble. So, but it's all good though. It's got a basket on the back. The rear axle can hold me on back of it because I rode it around the block with her just playing around one time. Grabbed a hold of the throttle and no, here around this block. But anyway, so yeah, it's not a problem, between between the trailer, between bug out bags on her backs, and her basket, will be fine if it's a bug out situation. So that's the intent. It's kind of an intermediate, system. So, wow, I talked about that longer than I intended to. But yeah, that's the solar charge controller that we went with. Once again, thank you very much to the gentleman that helped us with that. That's awesome. Really, really awesome. So let me show you where we are now. As I was saying last night, I guess the YouTube finally caught up, and this was thanks to Smitty's super chats. The YouTube has caught up to AdSense. So, but keep those clicks a coming. Keep those clicks a coming on the website. Because, and I'll explain that in a second. So the balance is 85.15. We have to reach that $100 threshold before they pay out. Unfortunately, we won't reach it in time because whatever becomes here, which I won't know until the end of the month. Like today, there was another $1.33 added to it because of simply clicking the ads on the website. Anytime you click one of these ads on the website, or there's one at the very bottom here, it throws a little bit into AdSense. So you don't have to buy anything, fill anything out. It just throws a little bit in there. So anyway, keep on clicking. Even though that as long as we get what this says right here, we'll have enough to get it next month, then we'll move on to the next step, right? We'll get the trailer for Blue, and we'll start getting stuff for a water filter. Since we've got solar squared away now, we'll start stuff to do the water filter project. And on that particular project, I'm going to show you guys. I'm going to take dirty, crappy, muddy water and literally filter it right in front of you and drink it. And on top of that, I'm not just going to do that, but I'm also going to have a second glass setting there with tap water right out of the sink. And I know you guys won't be able to taste it, but I'm willing to bet that the water I filter tastes better than the tap water that comes out of the sink. I'm willing to bet it. So anyway, anyway, that's where we're at. So again, the YouTube hit, and I assume that's from last month. So it has hit, and so on the first, whatever numbers here, whatever we've came up to at that time, we'll move over to the balance. I'm pretty sure that's how that's going to work, and then on like the 21st, I think it is, of next month, they will issue a payment, not the 21st of this month. I don't think there's any way for me to get any of this month. I don't think so. They work behind, and that's why we were like 2 months behind with Freedom, because technically AdSense is like a month behind, and then Freedom like to sit on it and collect interest for a little bit, so they put us another month behind. So anyway, that is where we're at with that. Now let me go ahead and read through the Twitter stuff and get the monologue stitched up, and we'll go from there. Last night, I put out the review on the Survivalist series by Angry American. And so I put out that video that I was talking about. I was going to do a video review on the books. And that's exactly what I did. Okay, again, last night, I showed this 18 hours ago. OPCW complete Skripal case probe. Syrian government regains control over Eastern Ghouta. Trump says, I never said when attack on Syria would take place. Okay, this is him backing off of his statements, because remember, he had just stated within 24 to 48 hours there'd be a decision, which I know you can say, well, that's not saying he's going to strike. He could decide not to strike. I know, but we all know what he meant. OPCW confirms British findings over substance used in Salisbury poisoning. U.S. recent statements are silly warmongering, says the Russian Prime Minister. Macron claims to have proof of chemical weapons use by Syrian government. Now, see, that's Macron saying that they have proof of chemical weapons. Russia saying that they have proof there were no chemical weapons. Believe me, those war drums are beaten. Personally, my opinion, I don't think there was chemical weapons. Berlin will not join any strikes on Syria, says Merkel. Now, that is probably something to pay attention to. You're talking about Angela Merkel here. She would love to get her hands in some blood. But I think she's smarter than this. I do think she's smarter than this. Johnson blames Russia again for Skripal attack, despite independent report providing no new evidence. Now, do you remember like a week ago, Johnson was all like, oh, I never said that. I never said Russia was guilty. I never said Russia are the ones that poisoned Skripal and his daughter. You remember that? I do. Because, see, he said that they did it. Then, when he got pressed about it, he took it back and said, oh, I didn't say that. Now he's saying it again. I wonder how long this guy takes to pick out underwear each day, or I guess he can't even decide to pick out which comb he wants to use. I think he gives up on the comb argument. Let's see. Russia's military options to counter U.S. strike in Syria. Britain requests UN Security Council meeting on OPCW report into Salisbury poisoning. Threats to use force against Syria is violation of UN Charter, says Moscow. NATO calls on Syria to provide observers access to alleged chemical attack site. It's interesting stuff. I'd like to know who the observers are going to be. Let's see. Constant info leaks on Skripal case are absolutely deliberate, says Moscow. Bus with 40 school children crashes into car in Moscow region. I said school children. It says children. May not be school children. I don't know. I'm assuming. UNSC convenes to discuss non-proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Pompeo calls for tough actions against failed state of Syria. Supreme Leader Representative, Iran can destroy Israel. Pentagon does not have evidence of chlorine sarin use in Syria's Duma, says Mattis. Mattis said that, right? This isn't the Russian Ministry of Defense. This is Mattis saying that. So pay attention to what happens in the near future. Because I bet this won't make a damn bit of difference. At least 10 killed in bombing to the north of Baghdad. Damascus to hold West responsible for any blocking of OPCW mission. Which is interesting because that's Syria saying that they will hold the West, including us, I'm sure, responsible for blocking anybody from getting in there to investigate. Trump, whatever you want to call him, Chump. You can call him Chump if you want, I don't care. Trump will reportedly warn Russia where in Syria the U.S. will strike. That might be a good idea. Oh, pardon me. Keep yawning. Waking up at blue o'clock in the morning. Russia prepares for nuclear war with U.S. This article actually should have been before some of the other articles. But this is serious stuff, folks. This is absolutely serious stuff. I'm just going to zip up the monologue here. I mean, I pretty much covered everything I wanted to say, you know. And when it comes to that big question, are we closer to shit hitting the fan or not? I don't think we're any different. Maybe a little worse off. Because if it is we the people that slowed them down, that slowed the government down from going in there and bombing and killing innocent people, then they're going to have to put, and when I say there, I'm not talking about Trump, I'm talking about the deep state, whatever you want to call them, they're going to have to shut us up. Think about that. As I always close up the monologues, God bless you all, we love you all, be one with your spirit. Keep your eyes and ears open.